Dear students, in this module we will discuss about age-at marriage. The learning in this module will be in terms of importance of age-at marriage from the demographic point of view, marriage age laws across various countries, the situation regarding age-at marriage worldwide, situation of age-at marriage in developing countries, then specifically the marriage patterns in India, the age-at marriage in Africa. Then we will try to understand about the international agenda, legal framework and marriage age laws across various countries. Then finally, we will talk about implications of child marriage and then finally summarize. Age-at marriage is an important determinant of fertility and population growth. It is an important factor in demography or population studies. The age at which a boy or girl gets married will have bearing on educational attainment, occupation, childbearing, family size, etc. Let us try to have a look at the situation in terms of marriages worldwide. Early marriage and forced marriage in some cases is most common in many countries from South Asia, West Africa and Central Africa. In South Asia, about 46% of the girls become child brides. On the other hand, in West and Central Africa, 41% of the girls become child brides, and among girls in Latin America and the Caribbean as well, 29% experience early marriage. Marriage before the age of 18 years among girls is highly prevalent in many countries, and the figures indicate that 18% of the girls in East Asia and Pacific get married before 18, with the respective and corresponding figure being 15% in Arab states and 11% in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. In Bangladesh, 66% of the girls get married before 18 years. In many of the developing countries, 1 in 3 girls is married before reaching the age of 18, and 1 out of 9 girls from the developing countries is married before 15 years of age. Let us have a look at this figure. This tells us about the age-at marriage for both men and women in various countries. This data comes from publications of various international agencies such as UNDP, ILO and World Bank. Let us look at the age-at marriage, mean age-at marriage for the men. Germany tops with 34 years, 34.2 years, followed by France 33.6, Italy also 30.6, and then at the bottom you have China with 26.2 and India 24.9. In case of women, India's figure was at 20.7 and Germany with a figure of 32, France also had a figure of 32 years. Brazilians were found to be putting off the marriage the longest in the last 2 decades. And then if we look at the increase in age of marriage since 1990-91, Brazil tops in case of men as well as women. In case of men, the marriage was delayed by the men from Brazil by about 6 years. In case of Italy, it was 5 years, and South Africa recorded a figure of 4.1 in case of men. On the other hand, in the case of women, Brazil recorded a figure of 7.2. That means the Brazilian women delayed their marriage by about 7.2 years, and it ranged from 7.2 in Brazil to 3.8 years in case of South Africa. This figure indicates the wide range in differentials in terms of age at marriage for men and women across the countries of the world. Of course, the countries included here were a few selected countries, but we can conclude that the differentials between the countries are quite visible as explained in this chart. So, we have seen the marriage age in various countries for men and women, and then the kind of delay that happened in marriage in these countries, of course in few selected countries. Now, let us turn our focus to the situation in developing countries. In spite of almost universal commitment to end the child marriage, approximately 1/3 of the girls in the developing countries, of course with China being an exception, is married or in union before the age of 18 years. The estimates indicate that if the same trend continues in the next 5 years, more than 70 million girls will be married as children. This is an alarming trend, and this raises the concern towards addressing the issue of early marriage. Let us now look at the situation in India. Nearly 12 million Indian children were married before the age of 10 years, and as many as 7.84 million, 65%, were married. As many as 7.84 million, that is 65% of the married children were females, and the analysis indicates that girls are more disadvantaged, because 8 in 10 illiterate children who were married at early age were also girls, and women from urban areas marry more than 2 years later than their rural counterparts. That means the marriage is delayed by about 2 years, or in some cases even more than 2 years, by the urban women compared to their rural counterparts. The level of teenage pregnancy and motherhood is almost 9 times higher among women with no education than among women with 12 or more years of education. This clearly illustrates the impact of education on age at marriage and the effect of education on delay in the marriage among women. As many as 5.4 million, 44% married children below 10 years were illiterates, and 80% of them happen to be females, and this again indicates the correlation between levels of education and early marriage. Let us continue the discussion on marriage age trends in India. 102 million girls means 30% of the female population were married before 18 years according to the 2011 census. Against the figure of 119 million in 2001, 44% of the female population. That means there was a decrease of about 14 percentage points in a decade in the proportion of girls who married before 18 years of age. In case of boys, the figure was 120 million in 2001 and it became 125 million by 2011. In case of boys, the age of marriage considered was 21 years, which is the stipulated minimum age in case of boys, while 18 years is the stipulated age for girls to be married. In spite of the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act being passed, which stipulated 18 years as the minimum age of marriage for girls, and the act also mentions about penalties for violation, but weak enforcement seems to be an issue, because local authorities seem to have not issued even a single injunction. The local authorities have not issued a single injunction towards prohibiting the child marriage. No legal action was initiated in spite of the child marriages continue to occur in various parts of the country. Let us have a look at this figure number 1. The message from this figure is that rural India has more married girls who got married below 10 years of age compared to the urban India. And then the chart also gives the male female differentials and differentials by religion, and it gives in terms of the number of married children in 100,000 or in lakhs. In case of Hindus, the figures were 50.34 and 23.93 for females and males respectively. In case of Muslims, the figures were 5.39 and 2.62 for males, for females and males respectively. The figure 2 gives us the number of married children according to age, and it also gives us the results at two different points of time, 2011 and 2001. 30% of the girls got married before the legal age of 18 years. Figure 3 gives the number of children who got married in case of boys by age for 2001 and 2011. It also indicates that 42% of the boys married before the legal age, which happens to be 21 years. Let us now move to figure 5. It clearly indicates the impact of education on age at marriage. Perhaps education is the best prevention. Education helps in preventing early marriage and consequent early childbearing and child rearing. It gives us the percentage share of girls married before the legal age of 18 years by educational level. The differentials are quite visible. As the education improves, the percentage of girls who got married below 18 years gets reduced. Figure 6 gives the percentage of women who got married at an age below 18 years, and it also gives the state level differentials. The upper panel was about the states where mean age at marriage for women is more than 23 years. The second panel had states with mean age of marriage for women below 22 years, and then it also gives us the percentage of women who got married below 18 years of age. So, having seen the situation with regard to age at marriage in India, let us now shift our focus to the African region. Two major international agreements aimed at protecting rights of children were in place in sub-Saharan Africa. These two agreements include 1989 UN Convention on Rights of the Child (CRC) and 1990 African Charter on Rights and Welfare of Child (ACRWC). All the African countries except Somalia ratified the UN Convention on Rights of the Child. Somalia, without expressly referring to child marriage, describes several child rights violated by practice. In the sub-Saharan Africa, out of 37 countries, that is 90%, have legislated minimum marriage age of 18 or older for females. In the sub-Saharan African region, 12 of the 37 countries permitted marriage before the age of 18 years with parental consent. Thus, these countries allow parents to marry off their daughters before they reach adulthood. Let us look at the legal initiatives in sub-Saharan Africa. What kind of legal provisions are there to address the issue of early marriage, particularly that of girls? Marriage laws in almost all the sub-Saharan African countries have made provisions so as to allow children to marry under customary law or other circumstances, such as if the girl is pregnant, without specifying a minimum age. When we talk about the legal frameworks and policy environments governing minimum marriage age laws in sub-Saharan Africa, they vary and differ to a great extent across the countries. Some countries have provisions to criminalize child marriages. Some countries ban or invalidate the marriages if one participant is younger than the legally prescribed minimum age. Other countries merely prescribe a minimum age of marriage, and these countries do not expressly criminalize or ban the child marriage. The kind of punishment given in case of violation also ranges from some penalty to prison imprisonment or both. But the issue is that the laws relating to aged marriage must be communicated to the communities, and the community should also adopt these rules and regulations, and the focus has to be in the remote rural areas where child marriages are more prevalent. Let us look at this table that gives the countries that have the highest percentage of 20 to 24-year-old women who were married or in union before the age 18 years. As we have seen in the earlier modules, the percentage of women aged 20 to 24 years who got married or in union before the age of 18 is one indicator. So, this table gives the results for that indicator. A closer look at the table indicates that in many of the countries the percentages are very high. Niger has a figure of 75%, Bangladesh has a figure of 66%, Mali has 55%, South Sudan has 52%, Malawi 50%, India 47%, Somalia 45%, Zambia 42%, Nepal 41%, Nicaragua 41%. Let us now move to table 2. The minimum ages for marriage and age of sexual consent in the selected sub-Saharan African countries by sets. The year of reference was 2009, and then there are some countries with consistent laws relating to marriage. There are some countries with inconsistent laws relating to marriage. In the first category countries, the minimum age for marriage for both boys and girls happen to be 21 in Uganda, Rwanda, and in case of Ethiopia it is 18 years. And the table also gives the minimum age for marriage with parental consent. There is some decline in case of Burundi and even Uganda. Then the age of sexual consent is lower than the minimum age for marriage. On the other hand, in case of countries with inconsistent laws, Cameroon recorded minimum age for marriage with parental consent 18 for boys and 15 for girls. Malawi 18 years is the stipulated minimum age for marriage and 15 years in case of parental consent. Zimbabwe 18 years minimum legal age for marriage for both boys and girls, and in case of girls it is 16 years in case of parental consent. The age of sexual consent is also 16 years for boys and girls in Zimbabwe. Table 3 gives the prevalence of child marriages and adolescent birth among women of 15 to 26 years in selected sub-Saharan African countries. The survey reference here is also given, the sample size is also specified, and the percentage of girls married before age 18 across the countries it is about 30%, Mozambique had 42%, Malawi 38%, Ethiopia 34%, Zimbabwe 25%. And then percentage of girls who had first birth before the age of 20 years is as high as 48% in Mozambique, 46% in Malawi, 36% in 38% in Tanzania. The figures are of great concern because of early marriage and early age at first birth. The table 4 gives the percentage distribution of women who married as children according to age at marriage and median age at marriage and minimum age for marriage with parental consent in sub-Saharan African countries. The age at marriage was less than or equal to 13 and in about 5.1 in Burundi, 13.6 in Uganda, 25.8 in Ethiopia. And then median age is 18.8 in case of Burundi and 18.3 is the overall mean. The next table, table 6, gives the mean age at first marriage, mean age at first birth, mean age at sexual debut and percentage of women who gave birth before age 15 and before age 20. The message is same as the earlier tables because the results indicate early marriage, early sexual debut and early first birth. Let us now look at age at marriage laws. The 1979 Convention on Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women called for countries to set a minimum marriage age. Almost all the countries except 2 had implemented such laws even by 2013 and 21 countries have set a minimum age below 18 and this is in line with the international recommendations of 1989 Convention on Rights of Child. More than 100 countries allow for earlier marriages when parental permissions are considered, whereas 33 countries allow for marriages under 18 in accordance with religious or customary laws. Because of these kind of exceptions, the legal protections get diluted. At the international level, combating child marriage has remained at forefront of the countries for several decades. The rates of early marriage are dropping, but still it is a concern. And let us understand the relation between child marriage and human rights. Child marriage is a violation of human rights. In spite of prohibition, it continues to affect millions of girls, and early marriage derails the education progress and attainment of the girls. Also, it affects the sexual health and well-being of the girls. Child marriage as a result of early marriage leads to dropping out of the children from education system, and it also enhances the risk of violence, abuse, ill health and even early death. When we talk about health implications of child marriage, there is threat to the life and health of the girls, also has implications on future prospects. They often get married early, they become pregnant early during the adolescent stage. As a result of that, there are pregnancy and childbirth related complications. And child marriage denies the girl's right to choose whom to marry, when to marry, which are very important decisions for any girl or boy. And the marriage is often followed by pregnancy, and the girl becomes pregnant when she is not physically or mentally ready to be pregnant. The girls who are married early get exposed to STIs including HIV, and the girls who leave school have poor health condition and economic situation compared to those who are in school. What are the factors that lead to child marriage? Poverty, gender inequality are two basic factors that are responsible for this. The parental anxiety also adds to that. In many countries and many societies, parents see the daughters as a burden, and the dowry system prevailing in the country and the society also contributes. And education and wealth were found to be strong predictors of whether a girl marries early or not. So, the national policies that aim at improving these risk factors have substantive impact on child marriage, either independently or in combination with the legal provisions that are available. And research on impact of measures like tuition free education policies and of social protection such as cash benefits policies indicated positive results. In India, the conditional cash transfer scheme linked to girls' education and delayed marriage implemented in several states seem to be giving positive results. Then what needs to be done? The governments, civil society and other partners must work together to ensure that girls have access to education, health information and services besides life skill training. And girls should be encouraged to stay in school to the extent possible. And in case the girl gets married, she needs to be supported, because married girls also need reproductive health services to avoid early pregnancy. In case the girls become pregnant, they also need access to appropriate care throughout pregnancy, childbirth and even in the postpartum period. The support should be provided. Together, all these measures will lead to healthier families, higher levels of gender equality, and in turn help us in having a stronger society with more vibrant economy. And no society can afford to lose the opportunities and wastage of talent and exploitation of girls. Let us just understand the efforts of UNFPA and UNICEF. Action for Adolescent Girls program and UNFPA and UNICEF's global program to accelerate action to end child marriage. These initiatives empower girls and make them understand and exercise their human rights, including their right to choose as adults whom to marry. To summarize, we have seen that child marriage undermines a girl's rights to autonomy, to live a life free from violence and coercion, and also to attain education. Child marriage is widely acknowledged to be a harmful socio-cultural practice in spite of the legal frameworks that are available. And there is also an issue of human rights violation here. Early marriage has several implications to the girl and her children. The marriage policies are part of comprehensive and multi-pronged approach can only be effective. Greater attention should be paid to implementation and enforcement so that the desired impact can be obtained. There is a need also to identify effective strategies that can be implemented at community level. So, through this module we understood about the marriage patterns, marriage trends, marriage laws and legal framework that is available, implementation of the same, the factors responsible for early marriage, the implications of early marriage and the possible solutions to address the issues related to early marriage. Thank you so much.